Have you ever dreamed of selling it all and cruising into the sunset? Well, that's exactly what we did. It's no fun going it alone though, so why don't you join us for the ride? So if you're a fan of our channel, you know that our content has typically been about us cruising the east coast of the US and the Bahamas in our power catamaran, but we're going to take a slight departure with a few videos and highlight our recent trip to Europe.
So Island Time is about to take a big summer or end of summer adventure. We've been off the boat for a little while. The boat's been on the hard for a couple months while we visited Mom up north. But now we're going on a 1 month long trip to Europe, and we're going to Amsterdam and then some Greek islands, Mykonos, Naxos, and Paros. Then we're off to Athens. Then we jet over to Dubrovnik, Croatia, followed by a ferry ride to Hvar, and then to Split, Croatia. Then we're going to head over to Italy. We're going to go to the Lake Como region, stay in Bellagio, and for a couple days, and then we go to we take a train ride on the Bernina Express over the Alps to Zurich, Switzerland. So hopefully it's going to be a great trip, and we're going to try and get some videos along the way.
So a little more detailed look at our itinerary. We fly through London and connect to Amsterdam for 4 nights in the Netherlands. Then we fly out to the Greek islands, where we're 3 nights in Mykonos, the same in Naxos and in Paros. Then we go over on a ferry to Athens for a couple days, then off to Dubrovnik, Croatia by flight, and 2 nights there, 2 nights in Hvar, and the last 2 nights in Croatia in Split. And then we jet over to Milan, Italy. We go to Lake Como for 3 nights, stay in Bellagio. We train to Tirano, Italy, where we pick up the Bernina Express over the Alps to Zurich, Switzerland, and then on to London for a night before we connect back home. We'll be staying in 6 countries, taking 8 flights, 9 ferries, 2 trains, spending 28 nights in Europe, in 10 different Airbnbs and 1 hotel. So the total cost for that aspect of the trip, which is the transportation and lodging, is $5,500. Now that doesn't include the actual flights to Europe, which we use frequent flyer miles for, but I think $5,500 is a pretty good deal for what we're doing in that aspect. Now that doesn't cover food or drink, but still that's a pretty good price for 28 days in Europe. So the one comment, or should I say question, we've been getting from family and friends after we took the trip was, you planned this all yourselves? Like, you didn't use a travel agent or anything? And no, we did not. So everyone's wondering, geez, how did you do it? How did you make it all happen? So firstly, the strategy of this for us was plan it ourselves, and maybe we could visit all of our bucket list sort of destinations that we have out there. Let's minimize the travel time actually getting from place to place, and do a mix of sightseeing and some history. And of course, being Island Time, we like our leisure travel, and we'll stay in Airbnbs to save money and hopefully do all this without breaking the bank. So what we did, and how I recommend doing this, is first evaluate places that you might want to visit, and then kind of estimate the number of nights at each of those locations. And then look at what the transport time and costs are. Like, do you have a lot of connections? Do you have to take ferries, trains, etc.? And get a general idea then of available Airbnbs in those destinations by using the Airbnb app. And then factor in, if you have any, how to best use your frequent flyer miles. After doing your research, you'll want to lock in your US to Europe round trip leg. Usually you have 24 hours to hold those. And then what I do is I reserve my Airbnbs at all those destinations and make sure they're all cancelable, so I can get out of them if something doesn't work out. And once you have those, then you can lock in your flights between those countries and book any ferries or trains that are in high demand routes. What we didn't book ahead were airport transfers, because we figured we'd use taxis, buses, trains, or Uber even. most of the attraction tickets like museums, and any of the commuter type trains or ferries. In Europe, we found that our mobile phones were really indispensable. We used them to communicate with our Airbnb hosts, to get boarding passes, whether it's plane, trains, or ferries. Google Directions was really awesome, whether we were walking or riding a train, and booking attraction tickets, and even researching and booking restaurant reservations. So visually, this is pretty much what our route looked like in Europe. We tried to stick to countries that were somewhat close together or somewhat on the path between each other. We looked at some other countries, but found that the flights were expensive to sort of deviate off this, so that kind of factored into why we chose the countries that we did.
But today let's talk about packing. So we're kind of staging in Florida, getting ready to go, and we decided to just take a carry-on and a wheeled carry-on and a backpack. So this is what it looks like. Kind of crazy. So yeah, all this stuff is going to go with us. Actually, this is just my stuff. Got the small wheeled carry-on, and it's got the pull-out rails, so I like to put underwear and socks between the rails. Extra pair of shoes, some long sleeve t-shirts, about 3 pairs of shorts, 3 pairs of pants, 3 long sleeve shirts, 2 short sleeve shirts, 7 t-shirts. And we're going for 4 weeks, but we should be able to do some laundry like once a week. So I probably even have too much stuff, but better a little bit more than too little. I like to pack the stuff that is easily, let's just say, packable. These nylon shirts here, these shirts are real light. And even the pants I have are super, super lightweight. So everything packs up, and I guess it's less than 25 pounds. Then we have the backpack, extra pair of comfortable shoes, some bathing suits, things that don't matter if they get wrinkled. Stuff to get cold on the plane. I got my headphones. I've got sleep thing that goes around your neck. Forget what it's called. A bunch of cosmetic-y stuffs, and we're good to go. So all this stuff should pack up nicely in these two. How do I know? Because I already did it. Pancake. Pancake. You can't go on the trip. You're gonna have to stay with Grandpa and Grandma. You okay with that? Yeah, probably not. So all packed up. This is what it looks like. Small wheeled carry-on and a backpack. And hopefully it's not going to be overweight, because we're going on with 6 or 7 different airlines, and each of them has different rules.
We had some frequent flyer miles on Delta Airlines, and a partner airline is Virgin Atlantic, so we were able to fly out of Tampa, Florida, directly to London on Virgin, and then we connected from there to Amsterdam. Pro tip when you fly overnight to Europe is book an exit row, and on an Airbus 330 you get this nice extra leg room, so we could sleep at an economy fare with maybe a slight upcharge for preferred seating. 14 hours and 1 connection later, we landed in Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, and we could already feel the energy, and we're excited to get off to our Airbnb. This particular Airbnb was a ground level unit. It really wasn't too luxurious, but it was in the heart of everything there is to do in Amsterdam. Conveniently, there was a bar and restaurant just next door to the Airbnb, which worked out perfectly because we were tired, hungry, and thirsty from the long flight. You just can't help but love the European social life with the outdoor cafes, bustling nightlife, and people out till all hours. Our Airbnb was located just across the street from the Hotel Amstel, one of the most luxurious hotels in all of Amsterdam. We were pretty tired and jet lagged from all that travel, so we didn't really stay out too late on our first night, but we were kind of excited to see all the canals that Amsterdam is famous for. One great thing about our Airbnb was there was this fabulous bakery just a few doors down. We ended up coming here pretty much every morning for coffee and a Danish or a croissant. Pretty much all of Amsterdam is very pet friendly. A place like this really puts a Panera Bread to shame. Here's an outside view of the Airbnb and the restaurant next door and the Hobbit-like entrance. Though accommodations like this might not appeal to everybody, we kind of like living like the locals do. Another great feature of our Airbnb was it was located close to a number of metro stops on the Amsterdam metro line. And on our first real day there, it wasn't long before we realized how predominant the bicycling was in Amsterdam and the fact that they have the right of way. Each metro stop has some displays where it tells you the approaching trains and how long till they're going to get there. We found it really easy to navigate the metro network using Google Maps, and our first stop was the center of this city. Tell me you're in the Netherlands without telling me you're in the Netherlands. We typically like to start our first days in any country off with a walking tour, and you can find them online. They're free walking tours typically, and the tour guides work off of tips. The tour meandered through the center of the city. I think it was about maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours walking tour. We saw a number of highlights and even went through the red light district slightly, but you aren't allowed to take video there.
Portugal, because by then Portugal is the biggest trading empire in the world. They're sort of seen as the rulers of the world. He thinks, why don't we just go get the knowledge over there? We set up a secret spy mission to go to Portugal. We find the most Portuguese-looking Dutchmen. And well, look at me, they're everywhere, right? Tall, blonde, very Portuguese. Eventually they find some of them, they set up the secret spy mission, they spy for about 2 years in Portugal, and they return in.
While we often took the above-ground metro light rail, there's also a traditional sort of subway system that also takes you to many points of interest within the city. The Dutch people sure do love their steep escalators and stairways. With all the canals, you can't help but opt for a waterside lunch.
Beautiful caprese and a warm goat cheese, honey, and pine nut for the lady.
Day tour boats and boot cruises of all shapes and sizes seem to be the thing. Far be it from island time to miss out on any water-based adventure, so we decided to take our own booze cruise and tour the canals. The weather was sunny and in the mid-70s, absolutely perfect. If I recall, I think our cruise was about an hour and a half, and it's a bit more than a booze cruise as our guide was very informative. You never know what you're going to see on these canals.
Over here.
about the depth of the water. The joke say in Amsterdam is 3 meters.
Somebody had asked our guide how deep the canals were, and he said approximately 4 meters. 1 meter of old bicycles and debris, followed by 3 meters of water. We learned that bike thefts are a problem in Amsterdam, and one of the going jokes is everybody has 3 bicycles. 1 at home, 1 at work, and 1 in the canal. Periodically, they come in with small barges and cranes and remove all of the debris. The canals are lined with countless houseboats, some of them pretty magnificent, and you could actually rent and stay in them as Airbnbs, but we opted not to because we live on a boat and we wanted something different.
Bridge of love, because boys were waiting on one side, and an hour ago we had the other side.
Lori, what are you eating?
Bitter ballen.
Bitter balls. It's like a Dutch national treat. Some sort of fried meat.
We shall see.
We shall see.
We did our fair share of walking through the city, but I think the locals have the right idea with the bicycles. We can only eat and drink so much on holiday, and there are a number of museums in Amsterdam, so we decided to visit the Rijksmuseum. The Rijksmuseum showcases 800 years of Dutch history and the great Dutch masters such as Rembrandt and Van Gogh. Timing is everything though, as our first attempt to visit the museum didn't work out so well. Apparently Amsterdam is a very liberal city. There's a lot of protests that happen, and that day they decided to protest the museum and the owners, ING, for polluting the environment. So they locked all the doors and the protesters didn't allow anyone in. The police kind of stood nearby and let the protest just run its course. Pairs of protesters even chained themselves to the entrance gates so nobody could get into the museum. And they even put locks on some of the other gates. We ended up coming back the next day, and the museum honored our tickets that were purchased for the day before. I found it to be certainly worth the visit. One of our favorite things to do is really just walking around, exploring, and finding all the little eccentricities of Amsterdam.
Outdoor urinal.
Interesting little thing that we found were that the caps on the water bottles were made to stay attached, probably to prevent litter and plastic waste. The Dutch do love their cheeses, especially Gouda. We probably could have spent all day in this store sampling the flavored cheeses. So visiting the cheese store probably primed the pump a little bit, and Lori found this restaurant that specialized in wine and cheese. We went to take a look and ended up sitting at the bar. A conveyor comes around, kind of like if you were in one of those sushi restaurants with all different types of cheese and condiments along with it. And the menu will advise you of which to choose from. There are about 35 different options, and it really was something different and enjoyable. So Amsterdam is pretty much famous for the red light district. Of course, we had to go check it out. We made a mistake. We probably went too early, around 7 p.m. None of the ladies were really out in the windows. We weren't too impressed though. There were a lot of people hanging out in bars and a lot of families walking around like it was Disney World. I guess maybe you need to go after midnight to have some fun.
Cool, girl. Where are we going?
Our neighbors.
Neighbors? What do you mean?
Technically, our neighbors. Our neighbors. People are renting our place from.
Our Airbnb?
Yeah.
And what?
They invited us to their garden for a cocktail.
So we're gonna go check it out in Amsterdam. So they're really cool, huh? One of the cool things about getting an Airbnb. Sometimes the owner's really cool, and they invited us over.
That's true.
Wow. Do they know we're not that cool?
No, not cool.
Okay.
So Magnus and his wife, the host of the Airbnb, actually live above it in a townhouse, and they invited us over to hang out in their garden and have some wine, meats, and cheeses. We had a great time learning about their life, and they're learning about ours and talking about things like American politics and such. It was really nice. Our visit ended with a nickel tour of their place, the typical steep Dutch stairs, and a beautiful view they had of the Amstel Hotel. That wraps up our few days in Amsterdam, and we hope you'll join us for our next video where we'll jet off to the Greek islands.